Back in the old days, before ABS's brakes and digital dashboards, there was raw, unfiltered motorcycle magic. The 80s were a golden era where every ride was an adventure waiting to happen. Today, we're going deep into the legends of the 80s, the bikes that defined a generation and sparked a lifetime of memories. Hit that subscribe button and join us on this unforgettable journey through the best motorcycles of the 80s. Your next dream bike might be just a click away. Number 18, Moto Marini 500 Sport. In the heart of the 1980s, while big bore machines grabbed most of the spotlight, the Moto Marini 500 Sport quietly carved out its own niche, winning the hearts of riders who valued character, style, and agility over raw horsepower. With its slim lines, classic Italian design, and a throaty exhaust note, the 500 Sport had a presence that commanded respect without shouting for attention. It was a bike that looked as good parked in a cafe as it did carving through mountain passes. Today, the Marini 500 Sport is a cherished collector's gem. Prices generally fall between $4,000 to $6,000, reflecting its rarity and the devoted following it still inspires. For many, owning one is like owning a piece of Italian motorcycling history that refuses to be forgotten. The Moto Marini 500 Sport isn't just a motorcycle from the 80s, it's a testament to the passion and craftsmanship that define Italian bikes. But there's another bike for riders who want more than speed, they want a bike with heart. And that's exactly what this legend delivers every time you take it out for a ride. Number 17, Suzuki DR Big 750. Imagine the weight of the world on the front wheel and loving every second of it. The Suzuki DR Big 750 wasn't about slick fairing or speed, it was about fortitude, torque, and that thump-thump of a thumper shaking your soul. Its AIR-cooled single-cylinder engine delivered modest power, but unmatched traction and low-end pull. With wet weight in the neighborhood of 450 pounds, it wasn't light, but it was capable on rough gravel roads and city streets alike. Rider stories capture the vibe. Buy it, take good care of it, and keep it forever, one rider urged. Another called it a very analog experience. Heavy, but not half bad off-road for what it is. It's a bike you feel. Each bump, each curve, each clunk is part of the bond. Prices? These surprisingly still affordable behemoths can be found in the $2,000 to $4,000 range, rising only slightly as their legend grows among adventure purists. What else do you think people love? There's a bike that's uncomplicated, rugged, easy to maintain, and it whispers stories of endless gravel roads and backroad escapes. It wasn't sleek, it wasn't flashy, but it delivered a different kind of freedom. Number 16, Honda GB500 TT. You could walk into any dealer in '89 and find stacks of fire-breathing hyperbikes, but then there was the Honda GB500 Tourist Trophy. Retro, quiet, magnetic. It looked like a Besse Gold Star reborn for your high school bachelor pad dream. Its air-cooled 4-valve single-cylinder OHC motor churned out just 33 horsepower and around 26 pound-feet of torque, numbers that sound modest, but with a tight chassis and low weight, it could hit 108 miles per hour and cover the quarter mile in around 14 seconds. It wasn't a broad seller, but American fans couldn't stop talking about it, even decades later. On forums, riders gush, "It's one of my dream bikes. Looks like a Euro classic with Honda reliability." Prices now sail between $5,000 and $9,000 for clean, original examples, and rarely hit the market, making them almost mystical. What makes folks fall for it? The ride is pure poetry. Every shift, every rev unlocks memories of youth, poster wall dreams, and that feel-good thump of a great single. This bike defines cult collector appeal. It's emotional, it's under the radar, and it's proof that legendary doesn't always mean loud. But hold tight, there is a dual sport, another legend that turned the adventure world on its head. Bike 15, Yamaha SRX 600. You didn't need flashy fairings or four-cylinder firepower because the Yamaha SRX 600 served nostalgia on two wheels and demanded your full attention. Launched in '85, it carried a single-cylinder, 608 cubic centimeter engine derived from the XT600, delivering about 45 horsepower at 6,500 RPMs and 34 foot-pounds of torque at 5,500 RPMs. Riders remember how its no BS, aluminum accented styling, bare metal, exposed engine, and a sculpted tank felt like a breath of fresh air. Cycle World called it a "what you see is what you get" bike that delivered balanced power and fun handling. It wasn't about blazing laps. It was about feeling every lean, every pulse, every twist. Folks rave about the SRX's corner carving magic and how it washes away its straight-line performance deficiencies with sheer riding joy. It's a rider's bike, not a spec sheet filler. Originals rarely pop up. Prices hover in the $3,000 to $5,000 range depending on condition, and when one appears, it's a flashback to simpler times that collectors snatch up fast. This understated thumper stands for pure motorcycle soul. It whispers, "Remember when riding was about connection, not distraction?" And also, there is an Italian triple that roared with even more character. It's small, lighthearted, and purposeful. Number 14, Labrado Reges 1000. If the SRX is a poem, the Labrado Reges 1000 is an opera in steel and curves. Unveiled in 1982, this Italian exotic married flowing Bayflex fairing, integrated luggage, and that fuel filler built into the nose, with a smooth rubber-mounted 120-degree triple that still pushed near 100 miles per hour and ran the standing quarter mile in just over 12 seconds. Cycle World described it as the anti-Japanese norm, loud-throated, heavy-boned, and loaded with heart. It rips and snorts down the road like the world's fastest chainsaw, they raved. The steering is heavy, the chassis taut, the presence other bikes simply couldn't match. It was Italian soul wrapped in purpose. Riders love its unapologetic character. It wasn't about being user-friendly, it was about being memorable. Every ride felt like a performance. Every rev a declaration. That Rome-inspired swagger still climbs through your blood decades later. And next, brace for turbocharged tailwind that's just as memorable. Number 13, Honda CX650 Turbo. When you thought motorcycles had peaked, Honda dropped the CX650 Turbo in 1983 and it blew minds. With a 647 cubic centimeters, liquid-cooled, turbocharged V-twin pumping 100 horsepower at 8,000 RPM and 69 pound-feet of torque, it blasted from 0 to 60 in just 4.3 seconds, topping out around 140 miles per hour. Here's what riders say. When the boost kicks in, it's sublime. Another added that the electronics were quirky, but part of the charm and an absolute riot to ride. Yet others confess they miss it every day. Turbo lag be damned. As for price, clean examples have sold for $3,000 to $6,000, depending on condition. Kelley Blue Book lists $3,105 for good, up to $6,575 for excellent. Love it or fear it, the CX650. Turbo was a glimpse of what bikes could be, but if you want to know what innovation tasted like in the 80s, there's still one hell of a ride you need to check out. At number 12, the Bimod KB2. Some motorcycles scream for attention. Others lure you in with a quiet confidence that's impossible to resist. The Bimod KB2 was one of those rare, mysterious creatures of the early 80s. You didn't just see it, you felt it. The paint shimmered under the sunlight. The curves looked hand-drawn by someone who understood that speed was also an art form. The KB2 wasn't parked outside every cafe. In fact, most riders never even saw one in person. That's what made it so dangerous to the imagination. You knew there were only a handful in the world, and the ones who had them? They walked a little taller. This was the kind of bike you dreamed about long after seeing it. And maybe that's the magic. The KB2 was never about blending in. It was about stepping into another world, one where every ride felt like a stolen moment in Italy, the wind carrying whispers of racing legends. But there's a bike that's just as classy, and if you've ever been lucky enough to see one glide past, you'll know that moment stays with you for life. Number 11, Suzuki RG500 Gamma. There was a time in the mid-80s when the Suzuki RG500 Gamma wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a promise. A promise that you could touch the kind of exhilaration usually reserved for professional racers. It had a look that made people stop mid-sentence. The crisp white and bold blue, the razor-sharp stance, the way it seemed ready to leap forward even at a standstill. Back then, owning one was almost mythical. Few could afford it, and fewer still could truly handle it. Today, clean examples can fetch $25,000 or more, depending on history and originality. Because this wasn't about numbers. It was about the thrill of feeling untouchable, of knowing that for a few precious miles, you were living the dream teenage you once plastered on the bedroom wall. If you're still here, make sure to like our video and subscribe to our channel. Also, which retro bikes do you think will make this list? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. Honda VF1000R. When Honda rolled out the VF1000R in the mid-80s, it wasn't just releasing another motorcycle, it was issuing a challenge to the entire world. This was the bike that made riders feel like kings, even standing still. It had presence, real presence, the kind where you could hear it before you saw it, and when it rolled into view, the AIR seemed to tighten around it. Painted in those deep, proud Honda racing colors, it looked every bit the champion. Riders remember the VF1000R for its authority on the road. One American rider, now in his 60s, told a magazine, "When you pulled up somewhere on the R, people respected you. That's not something you can buy anymore." Today, collectors will pay $10,000 to $15,000 for a clean original example, and the demand is only climbing. Part of that is nostalgia. Men who were teenagers when the VF debuted are now in the position to finally own the dream. But part of it is the undeniable charisma the bike carries. It wasn't just a machine. It was a declaration that you valued craftsmanship, that you understood what it meant to ride with pride, and maybe, just maybe, that you were willing to chase a feeling you'd never forget. Number 9. Yamaha RZ350, Kenny Roberts Edition. If you were alive and breathing in the mid-80s, you knew this bike, even if you never rode one. The Yamaha RZ350. Kenny Roberts Edition wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a poster child for speed, style, and pure rebellion. That striking yellow and black paint wasn't just color, it was an announcement. And it had a name attached to it that every racing fan respected. Kenny Roberts, the king of the track, the man who turned corners into poetry. Riders loved this bike because it felt alive beneath you. It didn't just take you from point A to point B, it made every block an adventure. One owner once said, "When I saw that paint job in the showroom, I didn't just want it, I needed it." Today, if you can find a clean Kenny Roberts Edition, you're looking at paying $10,000 to $15,000, and that's if you're lucky. They've become treasured by collectors, not just for their connection to Roberts, but because they represent a time when motorcycles were bold, raw, and full of personality. If you ever see one parked on a sunny afternoon, stop and look. You're staring at a time machine, one that takes you straight back to when the open road smelled like freedom and sounded like a two-stroke dream. And there's another bike that feels just like that. Number 8. BMW R80 GS. Long before adventure bikes became a buzzword, there was the BMW R80 GS. In the early 80s, it wasn't just another motorcycle, it was a revolution. It whispered to riders, the map doesn't end where the road does. With its tall stance and unmistakable BMW badge, the R80 GS didn't care if the road was smooth asphalt or loose gravel, it wanted both. For many, this was the first bike that truly blurred the line between touring and exploring. And in a time when most motorcycles were about speed or style, the GS was about journey. Today, collectors and adventure veterans still look at the R80 GS with a kind of soft-eyed respect. You'll see them sell for $12,000 to $18,000, often to riders who actually plan to ride them, not just display them. Because this isn't just a bike, it's a passport, one that stamped its place in history as the father of modern adventure riding. Number 7. Kawasaki GPZ550. In the early 80s, the motorcycle scene was full of big-bore monsters stealing headlines. But tucked in quietly, The Kawasaki GPZ550 was quietly building a legion of fans who knew the truth. This bike was pure fun. It wasn't the loudest in the showroom, it wasn't the most expensive, but it had charm, that perfect blend of everyday usability and weekend thrill. It was the bike that could take you to work Monday through Friday, then tear through your favorite back roads on Saturday like it had something to prove. Riders loved it because it felt honest. No gimmicks, no pretending to be something it wasn't. Just a solid, good-looking machine that did everything you asked of it. One old-school rider told a story about taking his GPZ 550 on a spur-of-the-moment trip across 2 states. Never complained once, just ate up the miles. Even now, decades later, you'll find them in garages of riders who simply can't let them go. The market value ranges from $4,000 to $7,000 depending on condition, but the real value is in the smiles per mile. Because for many, the GPZ 550 wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a first love. And like any true first love, it's something you never really get over. Number 6. Moto Guzzi Le Mans 3. In the mid-'80s, when Japanese speed machines were dominating headlines and German engineering was winning endurance awards, there was one bike from Italy that dared to do things its own way, the Moto Guzzi Le Mans 3. This wasn't a bike for everyone. It wasn't trying to be the fastest on the drag strip or the flashiest in the showroom. No, the Le Mans 3 was built for riders who understood that motorcycles aren't just transportation, they're characters. And this character had style, attitude, and a voice you could hear from across the street. That voice came from its unique transverse V-twin, a sound that didn't roar like an inline-4. It pulsed. It thumped with purpose, reminding you that this was a machine built in a place where design is art. Riders back then spoke about the Le Mans 3 with a kind of quiet pride. One British owner said, "If you bought one of these, you weren't just buying a bike, you were joining a tribe." And it was true, owning a Moto Guzzi meant being part of a family, a brotherhood of riders who valued authenticity over trends. Visually, the bike was stunning. The half-fairing, the bold red paint, the long tank that seemed to stretch into forever. It had presence. Park it next to anything else, and somehow the Guzzi looked more serious, more ready, more real. Performance by today's standards? Maybe modest. But in its day, the Le Mans 3 could eat up miles with that perfect blend of speed and stability. And it had something that many faster bikes lacked: soul. You didn't just ride it, you had a conversation with it. Today, clean examples are highly sought after. Expect to pay $8,000 to $12,000 for a well-kept one, sometimes more if it's museum quality. Collectors love them for their rarity and style. Riders love them because they still deliver that unmistakable Guzzi feeling every time you twist the throttle. The Moto Guzzi Le Mans 3 is not just a motorcycle from the 80s. It's a rolling love letter to what riding is really about: the freedom, the pride, the connection between man and machine. And if you ever get to ride one, you'll understand why its legend refuses to fade. Number 5. Suzuki GS1000S Katana. Back in the early 80s, the moment the Suzuki GS1000S Katana hit the streets, it was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. This was a bike that broke the rules. It was sharp, bold, and utterly unmistakable. With lines so futuristic, riders swore it belonged in a sci-fi movie. Designed by the legendary Hans Muth, the Katana wasn't just a motorcycle, it was a statement. It said, "I don't follow trends, I create them." From its distinctive angular fairing to the low, aggressive stance, the Katana looked ready to slice through the wind and cut a path straight to the future. Riders who got their hands on this beauty often tell stories of heads turning wherever they went. One American rider said, "I wasn't just riding a bike, I was riding a conversation starter." It wasn't just about speed, it was about looks, presence, and pure street cred. The Katana delivered solid performance for its day, with smooth power that made both city streets and open highways feel like playgrounds. But it was the whole package, style, sound, and swagger that really hooked riders. Today, finding a clean Suzuki GS1000S Katana means stepping into a collector's dream. Prices range from $10,000 to $15,000 depending on condition and originality. But for many, the value is in owning a piece of motorcycle history, a bike that changed the way the world saw sport bikes. If you ever catch a glimpse of a Katana gliding past, you'll feel it, that electric mix of nostalgia and future vision. Because just like the Katana, there is another bike from the 80s. It's the edge of cool that still cuts through today. Number 4. Honda CB1100F. In a world full of wild experiments and flashy prototypes, the Honda CB1100F was the perfect balance. It wasn't trying to be the loudest or fastest, but it was a bike you could trust, a dependable, beautifully crafted machine that just worked. With its clean lines, simple design, and that classic Honda reliability, the CB1100F became the backbone for many riders in the 80s. It was the bike you could take to work, then effortlessly turn into your weekend companion on winding roads. Owners often talk about the CB1100F like an old friend. One longtime rider shared, "It never let me down, never asked for much, and always made the ride feel smooth and connected." It was a bike made for real life, not just showrooms. Though it didn't roar like some of the era's sportier machines, it delivered a satisfying, smooth ride that made you feel confident and in control. It was the kind of bike where every twist of the throttle felt meaningful, every mile earned. Prices for clean CB1100Fs now hover around $7,000 to $10,000. Collectors and riders appreciate the bike for its simplicity, classic styling, and proven durability. It holds value because it's a classic that never really goes out of style. The Honda CB1000F isn't about flash or drama. It's about loyalty, dependability, and the quiet joy of just riding. If you want a bike that's as much a part of your life as a trusted companion, this is it. But now we're going into the top 3. If you're still here, then you are already filled with nostalgia. Make sure you like our videos and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Now let's get into it. Number 3. Yamaha XJ650 Turbo. Imagine the mid-80s, a time when motorcycle engineers were chasing speed in wild new ways. Enter the Yamaha XJ650 Turbo, a bike that promised to turn the future upside down. It wasn't just another model, it was a bold experiment, a glimpse into what motorcycles might become. With its futuristic styling and a powerful turbocharged engine, this bike was ahead of its time. Riders didn't just feel the power, they felt the thrill of cutting-edge technology beneath them. One owner said, "Riding the XJ650 Turbo was like strapping a rocket to your back, but with the control and precision only Yamaha could deliver." But the Turbo was more than raw power. It was a statement about possibility, a symbol of the 80s fearless innovation. It caught attention everywhere it went, turning heads and sparking conversations about what motorcycles could be, not just what they were. Though it never became a mass-market success, the Yamaha XJ650 Turbo quickly became a cult classic. Collectors today seek it out fiercely. Prices for clean examples range from $10,000 to $15,000, sometimes more, because owning one means holding a piece of motorcycle history that dared to dream big. The Yamaha XJ650 Turbo reminds us that sometimes the road less traveled is the one that leaves the biggest mark. It's a bike that dared to dream, and for anyone who's ever loved riding, that's a legacy worth celebrating. And as you'll soon see, the Turbo's story is just the beginning, because the 80s gave us so many unforgettable rides, and the next one might just surprise you. Number 2. Ducati Paso 906. In the mid-80s, when everyone was chasing outright speed and flash, the Ducati Paso 906 came along and said, "Let's rethink what a sport tourer should be." With its sleek, aerodynamic bodywork and that unmistakable Italian flair, the Paso wasn't just a bike, it was a statement of style and substance. The Paso's design was ahead of its time. Its full fairing wrapped around the bike like a work of art, giving it a smooth, streamlined look that turned heads wherever it went. Riders loved the way it balanced sporty performance with riding comfort, making it perfect for both winding back roads and longer trips. Today, clean Ducati Pasos are highly collectible. Prices typically range from $10,000 to $15,000, reflecting their rarity and the lasting appeal of their timeless design. Collectors love it not just for its looks, but because it represents a bridge between classic Italian craftsmanship and modern sport touring. The Ducati Paso 906 isn't just an 80s bike, it's a legacy of Italian passion and engineering, a machine that reminds us that sometimes the ride is about more than just speed. It's about style, soul, and stories you'll never forget. Now, what do you think the number one is? What bike do you think is the crown of the 80s? Behold, it's the BMW K100 Flying Brick. When BMW launched the K100, affectionately nicknamed the Flying Brick, in the early 80s, it was nothing short of a revolution. Gone was the traditional boxer twin, replaced by a straight four engine mounted longitudinally, a bold statement that shook up the motorcycle world. The K100 looked different, with its square, blocky shape earning it the Flying Brick nickname. But beyond looks, it delivered solid, reliable performance that made it an instant favorite for riders who wanted something dependable but distinctive. Owners often describe it as a bike with character, not flashy or flashy, but built to last. One longtime rider said, "It's not a show-off, but it gets the job done with style and precision." It was a bike you could trust on long tours or daily rides, with a presence that commanded respect without shouting for attention. Today, the K100 enjoys a dedicated following among collectors who appreciate its place in BMW's evolution. Well-maintained examples typically sell between $8,000 to $12,000 US, prized for their durability and classic design. The BMW K100 Flying Brick isn't just a motorcycle, it's a symbol of innovation and tradition coexisting. For riders who love a blend of old-school German engineering and bold new ideas, this bike remains a legend of the 80s worth remembering. Click on the next video on your screen right now, and hit that like button if you found even one bike that caught your eye. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. Catch you on the next one.